Hello, everyone, and welcome to War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast. We are coming to you, as always, from deep within the Outer Rim, far beyond the watchful eyes of the Galactic Empire. My name is John Mark Tolly, and normally this is the part where I would say I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, my co-pilot, Christopher Stolley, but unfortunately, due to extenuating circumstances, Chris was not able to be here today, but do not worry, fair listeners. Chris will be back next time. However, this time we have a very special guest, a longtime friend of the show. You know him, you love him. He's the host of Star Wars Canon Podcast, Mr. Brian Miller. Brian, how you doing, man?
I'm not as cold as you are right now, but it's still cold enough outside. I wouldn't go out without my tauntaun and my lightsaber.
No, never leave home without your tauntaun and your lightsaber. That is true. Yes. You never know when you're going to run into a snow beast. You never know.
You never know, especially here in Kansas, man, or my sister or something.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we get started, little house cleaning. As many of you know, who have been lifetime listeners to the show, my job and family life has not always lent itself to being able to record on a regular schedule. However, that is going to be changing soon. I'm going to be getting my real life job, a set schedule, and which will mean that a set schedule for recording and releasing War of the Stars will be coming soon. I'm not sure as of yet what my schedule is going to be. Once I do, I will release the schedule and let everyone out there know when War of the Stars is coming. And also, a lot of big things are going to be happening with War of the Stars with that. More shows, more episodes, and we just want to make this the best show that we can. I think that we do a pretty good job as far as content goes, but we want to make the quality even better. So I'm going to be talking with Chris about getting the Patreon page going up again, and looking to just get money and try to get better equipment so we can make this the best show we possibly can. So that's what's going on over here. In 2002, George Lucas released Attack of the Clones, the second of the promised prequel trilogy. From that time, shortly after that, the movies released, it didn't take long before Attack of the Clones was considered by many to be the worst of the Star Wars trilogy. Ugh. Panned for its bad dialogue, its clunky dialogue, and it's really just bad overall, just being a bad overall movie. But are there good points we can take from the Attack of the Clones? Are there nuggets that we can glean? Is there anything good in Attack of the Clones? So I'll start out with this question, Brian. What do you remember of the first time seeing Attack of the Clones?
Okay, so the first time I ever saw Attack of the Clones, that was 2002. I would have been 13 going on 14 at the time. I remember coming off episode 1, and I remember thinking episode 1 was just, oh God, it was bad. And I remember thinking, it was kind of cool seeing Anakin as a young boy and all this stuff. But then, we started getting word that episode 2 was coming, obviously. We just didn't know when at the time. And I remember I had this childhood friend named Josh that he used to call me once in a while, and we kind of talk back and forth. And he told me he saw the movie poster at the movie theater in our town at the time. It only had one screen. And I don't know, some people listening don't remember one-screen movie theaters, but they did exist at some point.
Yeah, yes.
And you'd walk in the little lobby and they had the movie posters up. And he said he'd seen the poster for episode 2. And we didn't even know what the title was yet. This is before the internet really took off too. You know what I mean? Our computers still made these weird noises when you tried to log in. And he told me it was called Attack of the Clones. Well, not seeing the movie, not having read the EU stuff or anything like that, but I heard about the Clone Wars. I was like, ooh, it's gonna be Clone Wars. So he started telling me, how he had this theory that, it wasn't Anakin that turned to the dark side, it was his evil clone and all this stuff. And we started talking back and forth, and so we all went into just this weird skewed expectation, right? And
Yeah.
I remember opening night, we went and saw Attack of the Clones. And when it first opened, like the first thing that caught me off guard was it's the only Star Wars movie that after the opening crawl, it pans up instead of down. It's the only one that goes up instead of down.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, okay, that's kind of weird, which kind of, tempered some expectations for episode 3 later on. We thought the opening crawl was going to appear and all of a sudden just boom, Star Destroyer, wasn't going to go anywhere. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but with episode 2, it was, I don't know, like as soon as, and I can't believe I'm saying his name in this house, Jar Jar. Like one of the greatest things about episode 2 is how much they toned down that bumbling idiot. Like they took him out of the limelight. And I think they listened and saw the backlash of Jar Jar from episode 1 and was like, "Oh crap, he has to be there, but can we do it in a way that is not so abrasive?" And I think once they
I agree. I think
Jar Jar just I mean, with that opening word though, that first thing he ever said in the film, like when when the lift opens and Obi-Wan and Anakin are standing there, he's like, "Obi," and it's like, oh god, just go straight to hell, man, like just God. But you said in your opening, kind of like, some of the bad dialogue, why did we really need a monologue on how sand is irritating? Like, who doesn't know that sand is irritating?
Yes.
That's just,
but at the same time, that's almost a Lucas staple.
Oh,
look at episode 4. But I wanted to go to Toshi's station.
Yeah. Pick up some power converters. Yeah.
Converters. Yes. It's all through Star Wars. It's every movie has. It's like Harrison Ford said, you can write this crap, George, but you can't say it.
Yeah.
Because no one actually talks like that in real life. But I mean, that's just George. That's
But see, the sand, the whole sand monologue. I mean, it kind of makes sense that it was there because he was comparing sand, what he's used to, compared to how soft Padme's skin looked and stuff like that. Still had this real rapey vibe to it.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, the biggest thing I took away when I was 13 for episode 2, I walked out like jaw dropped about the Yoda Dooku fight. Like that was the biggest thing that I took away from it at the time. When I was 13 years old.
See, me, that fight is my least favorite of all the lightsaber fights.
I feel like it was unnecessary. Now that I've grown up, yeah.
Because I put it at the bottom because one, to me it was just Luke. It was just ILM. The people at ILM typing with their keyboards, going, "Look what we can do! Look what we can do! We can make Yoda do flips." And you can take that fight out, and it doesn't take anything. It doesn't add anything to the movie. You can take it out and put something else in, and it just. To me, his fight in episode 3, Yoda's fight with episode 3 with
Sidious,
Palpatine is much better and much more just visceral. And
well, see the
I mean, I know they said I know they had the whole thing. They had the whole thing of Yoda and Dooku being Yoda's last apprentice,
right?
But then they never do anything with it.
Yeah.
They just mentioned, oh, yes, he used to be an apprentice. They're going to fight. Okay. And then nothing else is ever brought out. I mean, yes, it's mentioned in the Clone Wars TV series, but in the movies, it's never really mentioned again.
Yeah, it's never touched on again. And you brought up Yoda's fight with Sidious in episode 3, that fight was really good. I agree with you. That was a great lightsaber battle. But I think it would have been even better had we not seen Yoda fight Dooku in episode 2. I think it would have.
I agree.
Because I think had they saved that, that kind of jaw-dropping, holy crap, Yoda has a lightsaber moment for episode 3.
Yeah.
That would have been like.
Because you would have had a.
Yeah, like it would have just hit you. You know what I mean? Like you're just like, oh my god, this shit's about to go down. But.
Yes, because it would have been like. Yoda only brings up the lightsaber when when the fate of the galaxy is in the balance.
Right, yeah.
That's when Yoda brings out the lightsaber.
Yeah. So that's why I felt like the Yoda fight actually kind of took away from episode 3 just because we'd already seen it. You know what I mean? It was the same stuff again and again, but yeah, that was the biggest thing I walked away with.
For me, one of the things I can pull out of episode 2 is just the point that it's part of the story. It's part of the overall Star Wars mythos. It's something that you can't have. You can't have episode 3 without episode 2. I mean, you need that bridge to kind of get to there. Now, could the movie have been made better? Yes. But still, you need that kind of. You need to tell the story of how you got from episode 1 to episode 2.
Right.
And honestly, and I can say, I've been wondering this, if both Last Jedi and Attack of the Clones suffer from the fact that they are the second movie, and they're automatically going to be compared to probably one of the greatest movies of all time, Empire. And those are some big shoes to fill.
Oh, those are shoes that'll never be filled.
No, you can't fill. I mean, that's... Yeah.
Well, see, okay, here's the thing. Everybody praises... I know we're supposed to be talking about good things for episode 2, but we'll get there. Gotta get this crap off our chest first.
Oh, yes, yeah.
When everybody talks about how George Lucas is this, visionary director and everything. Well, the man's got a great imagination. I'll give him that. Mm-hmm. The man has got that. If it wasn't for him, we would not have Star Wars. He did a great job directing the first one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, everything that came after, even though he didn't direct Empire and Jedi, it still came from his imagination, the man, I'll just say, the man's he's a genius when it comes to, creating universes and worlds and stuff. But as far as his directing skills, it was somewhere, A New Hope, he directed that. Nobody expected it to be that good. Mm-hmm. But then, they brought in Irvin Kershner for Empire and Marquardt, I think was his name. Richard Marquardt. Was it Richard Marquardt? No. I think it was. Oh my God. I can't remember the name of the director for Return of the Jedi. I hate myself right now. But
while you're thinking, I am idiot.
Okay, right on. And, but, he did Return of the Jedi. And then Lucas said, hey, you know what? Let's just try and I'm going to try to do 1, 2, and 3 the way I want to do them.
Yeah. And
the problem was he kind of insulated himself and became King George, and he surrounded himself with yes men. They were, oh my God, this is George Lucas. We have to do what he says. We have to do, oh my God, whatever George likes goes, And, even George Lucas said during his test screening of episode 1, maybe I went too far in some places, just some of this isn't. And I think that carried over to episode 2. And with episode 2, I think he was coming off of, his realization that 1 wasn't going to be what he wanted it to be. Because he's even said he's embarrassed by episode 1, that he ever made episode 1. And, I think he was coming off of that, and it kind of affected his attitude and his outlook while doing 2. But I think after 2, something happened, and he had this, 180 switch. And I wouldn't say 180. Let's give him a 90-degree switch, and did episode 3. You know what I mean? Which which I loved episode. Oh 3. Yeah, the second half of episode 3 is oh my God, great.
Yes. By the way, it was Richard Marquand. Marquand.
That was it. Yep, you're right. I almost had it.
The one thing I remember about one of the first scenes that you see is. That I liked about episode 2 was actually really getting to see Coruscant for the first time. You saw it in episode 1, but it's kind of like I relate it to this. Like when you go to a new city for the first time, and you're just there spending the night for one night. Mm-hmm. You're just flying in, you're just driving through, you're spending the night, then you're leaving. Compared to you're going to a new city and you're going to be there for the weekend. In episode 1, we spent the night in Coruscant. In episode 2, we spent the weekend.
Right.
We really got to see the city. We really got to see inside the city. And we really got to see the inner machinations of the Senate.
Right.
Really on display. You got to see just how corrupt the Republic had gotten. You got glimpses of it in episode 1. And I think that's the one thing that a lot of people, when they go into, they don't realize is episode 2 is a political movie.
Oh, absolutely.
It's very much, I don't want to say a political thriller, but it's very much a political movie.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, and people say, well, keep the politics out of Star Wars. You can't have a war without politics. Wars are fought over politics. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you have to have that. It's a double-edged sword. You can't have one without the other. Just like you can't have a light side without a dark side. You can't have a shadow without a light shining on it. it's one of those things, you know, like, but I don't feel like the politics were done right. When you get into like,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm probably going to get lynched for saying this because it's Disney canon, you know, people call it, but you know, it's
Oh
when you
yeah.
get into like Star Wars Bloodline, the novel Bloodline, you know, and some of these other Bloodline was a political thriller that centered around Leia.
Yeah.
You know, that novel embodies the way politics should be handled with Star Wars,
Hmm.
and I feel like it was kind of too forefront and the prequels. I mean, it had to be there, but I think it was too
Yeah.
front and center in your face sometimes.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely agree with you that it definitely was too in your face, but it was still nice to see, you know, as someone who grew up with, and I've mentioned this before, reading the old EU books, the old Legends books,
Right.
and hearing, like, reading the Thrawn novels and hearing the first descriptions of Coruscant, you know, of the city planet, you know, this planet that was the entire planet was a city, and then seeing it in real life. I mean, not real life, but seeing it on the big screen
Right.
for the first time was just like my brain was just like, oh, blown
Right.
away.
Yeah. See, and they
And
added it,
speaking
and
of
they
being,
added it into the special edition too of Return of the Jedi
yeah,
at the
yeah,
end
I remember that.
during the celebration scene, and
Now,
actually
because I
on
remember
the
that was the first time we saw. That was the first time you saw it.
yeah,
Was the
and,
special edition
and actually on
of
the
that, and it was like,
Blu-ray
whoa,
on the Blu-ray they actually went back in and added the Senate chamber on one side of it and the Jedi Temple in the distance on the other. So if you
yeah,
watch the special
yeah,
edition, it's just, you know, skylines either direction, but in the Blu-ray they actually added those respective buildings.
yeah. Um, I also remember the. You mentioned seeing the poster. Do you remember the first trailers?
I do, and I wasn't even
Those were
sure it was. Well, to be honest, I wasn't even sure it was a trailer for a Star Wars movie at first. Like,
really,
because one of the first trailers I saw led with Anakin and Padme standing on that kind of balcony overlooking the water, and it was like,
yeah.
what?
Was that the one with no sound except for Vader's breath?
I think that was the one with just Vader's breath, which was kind of false
Yeah,
marketing because, you know, everybody was like, oh, we're gonna get Vader in this one, and then it didn't
yeah, I know.
happen.
I know,
Like,
but still, I just remember seeing that promo, that trailer, and being like, oh,
right, yeah.
that is so cool.
Well, see,
But again, I think it was because people thought we were going to see Vader.
right.
Um,
Well, see, back then, you know,
but
we didn't have the internet
I
at our
also loved,
fingertips all the time where you could just look up movie trailers. You actually had to go to the theater to watch movie trailers. And, you know,
yes,
like for episode
yes,
one, when I was a kid, that was in like 99. When the first trailers
yeah, I think
started coming
yeah,
out for episode
yeah.
one, me and my same buddy that I was talking about earlier, we went paid to get into, I think it was 101 Dalmatians. I think was the move, the live action 101 Dalmatians. I think we paid to get
I
into
think you're right.
that
Yeah.
just to watch the trailer for Phantom Menace, and then got up and walked out.
Wow.
I mean, we did, and then we did the same thing for episode two. I don't remember what movie we went and saw, uh, but by the time episode three came out, you know, they were starting to put trailers on TV, like
Oh, this,
debuting
oh,
them
yeah,
on TV. So, but yeah, no,
yeah,
you're right. Those spots for episode two, they were all right.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. They were pretty good. I also remember that loving the shot, that opening shot of the Naboo cruiser coming into Coruscant, and it just looking so sleek
mm-hmm.
and so just, and you can definitely tell the difference between that kind of golden age look that you get in the prequels compared to this kind of grimy, grittier that you
Mm-hmm.
get in the original trilogy. So you kind of get this idea of you were coming from this golden age, and now we've kind of transferred to almost a dark age.
Right.
Uh, yeah,
Well, even Obi-Wan said in episode four, he said a lightsaber was an elegant weapon from a more civilized age. You know, a more
yeah,
elegant age. You know, you know, that lightsaber is kind of representative of its time. You know, in the
yes,
old Republic and stuff like that. And you're right. I mean, to look at the prequels and then to kind of get into, you know, the classic trilogy, it's just like almost night and day. You know, and granted,
yeah,
we've got, you know, Rogue One and Solo and, you know, Rebels to kind of fudge that line a little bit, to kind of do a little
yeah,
bit of each. But yeah, to look at the films, I mean, it's almost night and day difference,
yeah,
except for the end of Revenge of the Sith, when you've got the Imperial officers on the Star Destroyer and they've even got sideburns, from like
Yes.
that. Great touch. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
great.
And I like the kind of touch of you're starting to see the transfer. Like you still have the old Venator class Star Destroyers in the shot,
Mm-hmm.
but they're gray.
Right.
They're the Imperial gray now. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, that's kind of a nice transition from the Republic into the Empire.
Right. And
I like
you see a lot of that in episode 2 also. I mean,
yeah.
you do see because when I was seeing Clone Wars for the first Clone Wars Attack of the Clones for the first time, and Obi-Wan's on Kamino, and they start showing the clones and how they're putting on the white
Yeah.
armor. I'm like, oh, okay, I see
Oh.
where we're going with this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that was the other thing is that kind of, seeing the first time and hearing, especially for me having grown up with the original trilogy being my Star Wars and hearing about the Clone Wars and then finally getting to see what the Clone Wars were about and how they started. And as much as I didn't like the fight between Dooku and Yoda, I thought the Battle of Geonosis was amazing.
oh no, that was a gorgeous battle. And it was
That was just
epic. We can definitely tell it kicked off. It was the first battle of the Clone Wars that
yeah,
we'd always heard about.
yeah. And we'd seen. I mean, I think the last time we saw a major like land battle like that of anything close to that size was we saw it in episode 1 with the Battle of Naboo,
Right.
but anything of this size with two sides that are evenly matched
Two
would have
massive
been
armies
Hoth.
coming together. Yeah.
Yeah, and even in Hoth, you might have even said that wasn't two armies that were evenly matched.
Right.
That was one army that was coming in to smash the hammer down, and one that was just trying to survive.
Yeah, the other was just trying to hold them off long enough to,
Yeah,
yeah. But, you could also liken it to, Return of the Jedi, because you had this massive space battle
yeah,
going on above, and you got this big ground battle going on. I mean, some people may write off the Ewoks, but they were vicious little bastards. I mean,
oh yeah,
they were
yes,
really
yes.
tearing up some stormtroopers, man. That was
Whew.
I've been showing my sister-in-law Star Wars for the first time. And
Hmm.
we watched The New Hope, Empire, and Jedi now. And she watched Return of the Jedi. And I watched it again recently, when she watched it. That was an epic fight. I mean,
Oh
that was a 3-part battle. You had that ground battle going, you had the space battle, and you had the Luke Vader battle going on in the throne room.
yeah,
All at the
yeah.
same time, and it was... I would put that Geonosis battle on par with... Well, I wouldn't say on par.
Mm.
Almost
Yep.
on par with everything going on in Jedi.
Almost.
Yeah,
Yeah,
almost.
yeah. What was your opinion on the casting of Hayden Christensen as Anakin? As far as how he did in episode 2, do you think that was a case of just bad writing, or was it bad direction, or was he at the time just not a good actor for that role at the time?
I'm going to say bad directing, and with a smidget of bad writing, because remember, it wasn't just Hayden Christensen
Mm.
in the lead for that role. They were looking at Leonardo DiCaprio also. He was one of the people they were
Yeah.
looking at for that role. And with Hayden Christensen, I don't think it was his fault. I don't blame Hayden Christensen. If he pops up in episode 9 as the Force Ghost of Anakin Skywalker, I want to see what JJ can do with the Force Ghost of Anakin. I want to
Mhm.
see, because Hayden Christensen, it wasn't his fault at all. I don't
No.
blame him one bit for it. And
I
but to see him, I don't know. He kind of episode 2 really had these dark moments. Like when Shmi dies. And Anakin goes and finds her, and she
Yeah.
dies in his arms, and he just goes ham on the Tusken Raiders. Right? He really embodied both sides of that coin. Because I mean, with Anakin Skywalker, you've got
that's what that look
yeah.
he did.
Oh God. Yeah, just that intense glare after he took the, when he's getting ready to just go head first into him. Jesus Christ, that was
He
just bone
he
chilling.
did so much as someone who's dabbled in acting before. He did so much with just his eyes.
Oh, he
He
did.
didn't say anything, but you saw every emotion go
Mhm.
through. You saw the pain, the sadness of knowing his mother was gone,
Yep.
the confusion,
Yeah.
the
Oh.
anger, the fear,
the grief.
you saw
You saw
the
all of it.
grief. Yeah,
Yeah. And
you
then you
saw
see it
you saw a complete. What did Yoda say? Fear
leads
leads
to
to anger.
anger.
Anger
Yep.
leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. You saw all of that in just a few seconds in just the eyes,
Yep. And then you see it come
and that
full
was
circle.
all
And then when
hate.
he looks up, when he looks up, and you actually, and the music had a lot to do with that too. When you actually hear
Yeah.
that ominous, it kind of, oh my God, that was just, holy crap, that was insane. But he showed both sides of that coin, because Anakin Skywalker, and I know this is a Star Wars podcast, please forgive me. He's kind of like Bruce Wayne and Batman, right? When you cast
Yeah.
an actor to play Batman, you're casting him to play two separate characters, Bruce
Hmm.
Wayne and Batman. Because we've had actors that were great Bruce Waynes and crappy Batman, but great Batman and crappy Bruce Wayne, right? So it's hard to nail both sides. And I feel like Hayden Christensen, he really went through those dark times in episode 2, because by the time 3 rolled around, things were looking pretty good for him. I mean, especially
Yeah.
when you watch Clone Wars and you see that he had Ahsoka with him, and she helped him grow a lot too. And when you
Yeah.
when you look at Clone Wars and see where he came between episodes 2 and 3, that right there gave me a
Hmm.
new appreciation for the character. And to see him happy in episode 3 and finding out he's gonna be a father,
Yeah.
and then he has a couple of nightmares, which that would get under anybody's skin, to be honest, but it's one of those things where you can see the seeds being planted in episode 2 that bloomed and
Hmm.
that blossomed in episode 3.
Yeah.
And some of the hate, like you were talking earlier, you had to have 2 to get to 3.
Hmm.
Had we not done episode 2 when he started talking about having nightmares about Padme dying, you wouldn't have you wouldn't have been able to relate that back to when he was having nightmares about his mother, and she actually
Yeah.
did die. Like, so
Yeah.
that's gonna put those seeds of doubt in his head that 2 was a
Yeah.
very necessary film. It's not my favorite at all, but
No.
it was a very
And
necessary
you
film.
you
You're
get
right.
to see, that's also where you really get to see the relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan.
Right.
And you get to see the beginnings of that, and not only the brotherly bond, but also I don't want to see almost this, not jealousy, but this where Anakin feels like he's being held back,
Mm-hmm.
and you're
Resentment.
going to see you're going to see the resentment. Like, he still loves Obi-Wan, but you're starting to see that resentment, and the way Anakin kind of chides, or not Anakin, but Obi-Wan kind of chides him. Um, a good example of this is the, and you get to see where Obi-Wan is completely in over his head
Oh,
with
absolutely.
Anakin.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the scene where I think you see this the most is the way he treats Anakin at the beginning when they're in Padme's chamber,
Mm-hmm.
and they're talking, and Anakin pipes up, and Obi-Wan just kind of tries to put him in his place almost, and almost embarrasses him.
Right.
And you just wonder, how that would have been different if that had been Qui-Gon.
Oh,
How would
absolutely.
Qui-Gon, yeah, how would Qui-Gon have handled that situation? And you just, like I said, you get right there, you get this whole idea that, oh yes, Obi-Wan cares for Anakin. They're friends, they're brothers, but he is in way over his head.
Oh, he is. Because, I mean, when Qui-Gon told Obi-Wan to train Anakin, Obi-Wan was still a Padawan. He was still a Padawan himself.
Yeah.
He hadn't even been declared a Jedi Knight yet, and he'd already told his master, "Yeah, I'll train him." So you're looking at a Jedi that just watched his master die. They take the most important Jedi of all time and say, "Hey, you're going to train this
Hmm.
kid." That's and we've even seen in some of the comics now. Like Age of Republic, they've been doing these comics, these one-offs for characters. The Obi-Wan comic has Obi-Wan talking to Anakin, telling him, sometimes I almost didn't train you. I almost didn't do it, because of that sheer responsibility. And
Yeah.
yeah, a lot got thrown on Obi-Wan in that, and it was mainly Qui-Gon that really thrust that on him, and you're gonna tell your dying master no, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like you can't do that. But you brought up Qui-Gon training Anakin. I've thought a lot. I think we've even talked about it on War of the Stars before, about things that would have been different, had one
Hmm.
thing changed. And one of the things I think I brought up was Qui-Gon training Anakin. Had he not died, he would have been the one to train Anakin.
Yeah.
And there's so much that Qui-Gon, I think, recognized with the responsibility of training somebody like Anakin, that Obi-Wan, as wise as Obi-Wan is, and he's still my second favorite Jedi, he still had that downfall of not being, not having the wisdom of how to handle something like, a chosen one. With Qui-Gon, I feel like he would have let Anakin go see his mother once in a while. I
agree.
I really, and I think that would have really buffered the moment when she died. I don't think Anakin would have had that resentment toward the Jedi Order, and stuff like that. And yeah, he would have been upset. He'd have been angry. But I think with Qui-Gon there to kind of shoulder check him, I think he would have kind of dealt with it in a different way, to where it wouldn't have been the first seeds planted for the dark side. But you're right. With Obi-Wan chastising Anakin like that, that's kind of real quick, that kind of when Anakin kind of brought it on himself when he got chastised there in front of Padme, because he's like, we will not exceed our mandate, young or Padawan, and he's like, why? And he's like, what? And he just goes into this trying to act all big and tough. Ooh, look at me, I'm a Jedi, in front of the woman he loves. And one of the biggest problems was, I think, he knew he was the chosen one. Somebody told him, said it in front of him, that he was the chosen one. They should have never told him that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, they did it whenever he was, I think he was a kid.
Yeah, Qui-Gon did it. He is the chosen one. How do you not see it? No, he shouldn't have never said that.
Yeah. But I had a thought, but I know it's out of my head.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. One thing I was thinking of is, since we're kind of on this, is kind of what if tangent now, which, welcome to War of the Stars, ladies and gentlemen. We go off on tangents.
I was trying not to this episode.
It's okay. Star Wars Theory, who's a great channel, he did a video on this, is a while back, but in episode 3, when Anakin, during that epic duel, when Obi-Wan says that Chancellor Palpatine is evil, and Anakin says the line, "From my point of view, the Jedi are evil." What if Obi-Wan would have said, "What do you mean?" Instead of saying, "Then you are lost," if he had stopped and said, "What do you mean from your point of view, the Jedi are evil?" and let Anakin try to explain his point of view.
See,
like,
I at that moment, I don't know. I feel like Anakin was too far gone at that point. Like,
I agree.
If he was willing to force choke Padme, if he was that angry that he was willing to force choke Padme because he thought she brought Obi-Wan with her, that there's no coming back from that at that point. He'd already murdered the younglings. You really think he's going to sit down? Like, Obi-Wan was known as the negotiator, and we see that in Clone Wars. Yeah. But it's I don't. The thing is, Obi-Wan.
Now that you kind of bring it.
Obi-Wan obviously knew that Anakin had a different viewpoint of the Jedi at that point, and how he knew Palpatine was manipulating him. I feel like Obi-Wan knew how he was manipulating him. So I don't know if asking him what he meant by that would have really accomplished anything. Yeah. But it does make you wonder, though, had Obi-Wan actually taken the time instead of pulling his lightsaber out? Because think about it, Obi-Wan pulled his lightsaber out before Anakin did.
Yes.
In that battle, Obi-Wan was going on the offensive.
Yes.
And so had he actually, they tried talking it out on that landing strip, because he tried to, Obi-Wan told him, I fight for the Republic, and at that point, when Anakin says, if you're not with me, then you're my enemy. I think at that moment, a switch hit Obi-Wan, and he just, what, this is it. This sucks, but there ain't no coming back from this.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting question. You
Yeah, it
know?
is. I mean, there's so many, and I mean, that's something we'll probably have to come back to again for another episode of War of the Stars. So I think we've covered quite a bit of ground here today.
I think so.
Maybe not all of it. Yeah. Um, I think for all its flaws, and to me, it, when you're talking about Star Wars movies, you're almost, especially for fans like us, you're grading them on a whole other level.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when we say that,
Oh, we nitpick them.
yes, but when we say that Attack of the Clones is the worst of the Star Wars movies, it's like saying, uh, it's like it's like saying vanilla ice cream is my least favorite flavor of ice cream. We still like it. We'll still eat it.
Right.
We'll still watch it. It's just not our favorite.
See, I'm trying to get to the point because all I see online, because Last Jedi is a great example. Because, a lot of people hold Last Jedi even lower than, Attack of the Clones. A lot of people, the biggest thing I see is everybody going, worst Star Wars movie ever. Okay, back up. Obviously, people like it, so it's not the worst. It is your least favorite. There's a difference between definitively calling something the worst movie and calling it your least favorite movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Attack of the Clones, there are people out there, that's their favorite Star Wars movie. So I'm not going to say it's the worst movie and they're an idiot for liking it. It's just me personally, my least favorite. I'm trying to get into that habit now, of not trying to not trying to deal in absolutes. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Well, I mean, it got a 6. It's got right now got a 6.6 out of 10 rating on IMDb and a 65% on Rotten Tomato. And 84% of Google users liked the movie. So it's got a following.
Right.
I mean, it's got people who like it, and like I said, it's ironically I did not end up buying episode 1 when it came out on DVD. I bought episode 2. No idea why. I bought episode 2. I own episode. I have it somewhere. I still have the original DVD when it first came out on DVD, the very first time. Somewhere out here, somewhere. But
well, see now another thing that has helped Attack of the Clones, in my opinion. I've said it's my least favorite Star Wars movie, but I can appreciate it. Like you said earlier, we still like it. It's still Star Wars. I can appreciate it for what it was supposed to be. I can appreciate it for what it is. And now we've got all this other stuff like Clone Wars, the series Clone Wars, some of the novels, comics that have kind of supplemented that film a little more, and kind of built off of it.
Filled in the gaps.
Right, and it's kind of it's made
I
it
just thought
easier
of
for me to swallow. Yeah.
I still think that kind of chase through the streets of Coruscant where they're in the speeder.
Oh yeah, that
was some of the funniest dialogue between the two of them, and you saw not only the connection and between Anakin and Obi-Wan, but you saw this connection between Hayden Christensen and
Ewan McGregor.
Yeah. Ewan McGregor.
See, you bring that up. That's very interesting because during that whole scene, Anakin is just stressing the shit out of Obi-Wan. Like, it's amazing that Obi-Wan didn't have any gray hairs in episode 2, and they waited until episode 3 to give him a little gray. Like, how did he not have gray hair? Because, from their conversations, the way they were acting, especially when Anakin jumps out of the speeder, he's like, I hate it when he does that. He'd done it before, like, can you imagine the amount of just, oh my God, what the hell am I doing with this kid? Like, over the years, like, some of the antics they'd gotten into, like, God, man, how was Obi-Wan not gray before episode 2?
How was it that Obi-Wan wasn't the one that turned to the dark side?
Yeah. Oh, Jesus Christ. No, it's a good question, man, because Anakin, that was a stressful Padawan.
Yes.
He had to have been a stressful Padawan.
There's a reason why they gave Anakin Ahsoka as a Padawan.
Oh yeah. And even Obi-Wan telling him, just teach her everything I taught you and she'll be fine. Like, it just
go on, have fun. Yeah.
Wow. No, Anakin, that had to have been a stressful freaking, there had to have been times. I really want a novel of Obi-Wan and Anakin, a canon novel of, kind of them throughout the years dealing with different missions and stuff. And then Obi-Wan going before the Jedi Council, and something happened during the mission, just blew everything to hell. And and Obi-Wan and Yoda saying something along the lines of, well, where did it go wrong? And Obi-Wan just looks at him, and Yoda's just like, Anakin, and Obi-Wan's like, Anakin. like Anakin's the one that did it. And just have the whole Jedi Council be like, Jesus Christ, what? God, why?
Yeah.
I want it. I think it'd be
all
great.
Right. Well, I think we're going to wrap things up. A little bit shorter of an episode this week,
no
but
problem.
It's all right. These things happened. So, Brian, where can the fine people reach you?
All right. You guys can find me on the Star Wars Canon Podcast every Saturday night, about 7 o'clock. You can check out StarWarsCanonPodcast.com for that feed. You can also check out the Facebook page. It is Facebook.com/Star Wars Canon Podcast, or the YouTube channel. I throw it up there as well. Just search for the Star Wars Canon Podcast.
Awesome. And of course, you can find us right here at Realm of the Mist on YouTube at Realm of the Mist. Just search for Realm of the Mist, or search for War of the Stars podcast, where you can find this happy little podcast. You can find me on Twitter at JohnMarkTolly1, because I am the #1 John Mark Tolley on Twitter. Also, our Realm of the Mist on Twitter is at Realm of the Mist Entertainment. You can email us at realmofthemistentertainment@gmail.com. And you can also find us on Facebook at Realm of the Mist and War of the Stars. And I'm at Mark Tolley on Facebook. Other than that, just anywhere you find podcasts soon, and hopefully. And until next time, may the Force be with you.
Always.